Well, hey, E100 readers, welcome to Unit 6. You are making progress. You are learning about the story of God in the Old Testament, and I just want to congratulate you on getting this far and give you an introduction to what you're going to be reading in this unit and why I think you're going to find it so interesting and so important. This unit is devoted to the book of Judges, and the book of Judges is really the story of how God uses unlikely people in Israel to lead Israel against other tribes who were harassing and attacking Israel. Now, in the book of Judges, there is a repeated pattern, a repeated story, and it's laid out in the first reading that you'll have in the book at the beginning of the book of Judges. When Israel is devoted to God, then they enjoy security in the promised land, just as God had promised. But as they become secure, they tend to become complacent, they forget about God, and they fall into idolatry. And when that happens, then God allows another tribe, a neighboring tribe, to attack Israel, to harass them, to raid them, even to try to conquer them. In desperation in those situations, Israel will call out to God for help, and God will send them someone who will lead them in battle against these harassing enemies that they have. Always someone who is very unlikely, not the kind of person you would expect to be an important, effective military leader. And so through that, Israel will be saved. They will be thankful to God. The deliverer will then lead Israel for a period of time, for a generation, in security. But as that comes to an end, Israel is going to forget again about God. It's going to fall back into idolatry. Rinse and repeat. The pattern is going to continue. Now, as we said, the judges are flawed people, and that's part of what makes them so fascinating. Why is God using these weak folk? Well, when we get to the New Testament, we'll read in 2 Corinthians how God says to Paul, "My strength is made perfect in weakness." We know this is God at work because these people are terrible. Gideon is going to be presented to us as a coward. He's hiding, trying to stay away from the Midianite tribes who are attacking. Samson's a mighty warrior. He's supposed to be fighting Philistines. He really wants to date Philistines. He's an arrogant playboy, yet somehow God uses him to overcome the Philistine threat. Well, another judge you'll read about is Deborah, and you'll say, well, what's wrong with Deborah? She seems great. Deborah is great. What's wrong with Deborah, and there's nothing wrong with this, is she's a woman. And so the fact that Israel is being led by a woman is to the shame of the rest of Israel in this ancient Near Eastern context where that kind of thing was seen as shameful to the men. It's not, in fact, but this is the message that God is giving with us. And Deborah says, they're going to remember that you were led by a woman. That's not going to be good for you. So these flaws emphasize God's power. And God emphasizes this as well by the methods by which he delivers the Israelites under the judges. In Gideon's time, it's kind of a psychological operation. We have just a few soldiers, but they make a noise that makes the attacking tribe think that they're being overwhelmed in a counterattack. In the time of Deborah, this happens because God sends a rainstorm at the critical moment, and these tribes who are using chariots, they all get stuck in the mud. And so the Israelites are able to overwhelm them. And then we get another woman at the end of that story who adds insult to injury with all of that. And then what's the deal with Samson? Well, Samson is actually harassing the Philistines when he's just trying to be a selfish lout and get personal revenge or chase women, to be honest. At the end of the story, he will be blinded as he has been captured, and we'll think, well, this is the end of his story, isn't it? But it's in this moment that God gives Samson his greatest victory, and that, again, the harassing tribe of the Philistines is for the moment overcome. Now, you're also going to be reading the book of Ruth in this unit, and I love Ruth. It's such an amazing, beautiful tale. I think chapter 1 has some of the most poignant writing in all of Scripture. Read it with the emotional content that it has. It's a story about the blessing of the nations. Ruth is not an Israelite. She is from Moab, a neighboring tribe, but she wants to be adopted into Israel, and we'll see how that happens. So she makes her mother-in-law, Naomi's people, her people, and Naomi's God, her God. It's a story of God delivering the weak and the poor despite the odds that are against them. And it's the story of how the faithfulness of one Israelite, namely Boaz, to care for the weak and the poor is going to be blessed. Ruth is going to become an ancestor of King David, and so because of that, an ancestor of King Jesus. So enjoy your reading in the book of Judges and in the book of Ruth, and keep going.